All right, we're back with chapter 14. The world is a wheel. And here's somebody training a horse. Let's see if the book tells us who it is. The day after his talk with his mother, Hans presented himself at the office of the Spanish court riding school. His determination made him miraculously calm. The same red-haired girl who had once told him to queue up left her desk and came to the porthole. Yes, she asked. My name is Hans Haupt. I wish, please, to see the director of the school, Colonel Podhashki. Have you an appointment? No, miss. He is very busy. There are 2 men in his office now. Hans's composure was suddenly gone, and with it his voice. Could I be of help? The girl smiled. Yes. I don't know. Come. Her tone was big, sisterly. Speak up. Could I see him tomorrow afternoon? No, tomorrow he goes to Piber. Hans was desperate now. When could I see him? I don't know. Perhaps if you told me your purpose? I want to be a riding master, he said helplessly. The girl hesitated. A strange resemblance between this boy and her own younger brother made her say, Wait a moment. She clip-clopped on her high heels to her desk, studied an appointment book, and returned. You come back a month from today, she said. Here, put your address on this card, and if you do not hear from us, you be here at 4 o'clock on the 10th day of June. For Hans, the next month was one of minute preparation. He cleared out his wardrobe, giving a bundle of clothes and a pair of shoes to Jacques. He gave him his precious collection of horse pictures. He taught Jacques the niceties of handling Rosie, how she didn't like being groomed under her belly, but liked a good rubbing whenever the harness leathers had touched her, how she submitted to the hoof-pick if she were busy eating her grain, and he showed Jacques the technique of arriving at the Hofburg at the exact stroke of 7. One morning he pointed out Barina with great pride. Humph, sniffed Jacques, he looks just like the others. Is that so? I suppose you think all children look alike, too. No, I don't. I know boys from girls. At school each day, at the library each night, Hans worked with single-minded purpose. He had to make sure he would graduate. He longed to tell Fräulein Morgan of his appointment with Colonel Podhashki, but he decided against it. Better to surprise her. Each evening, when he reached home, he was afraid to ask his mother if any word had come from the riding school, so he never asked. But as the days melted one into another, he felt safer, surer. June 10th came, a day of bright sunshine and a sky of deeper blue than Hans could believe. A good omen, he thought, as he arrived at the Hofburg. He was sure of it when he stood before the glass-enclosed office, and the red-haired girl remembered him. Come this way, she smiled. Hans followed her down a long stone passageway that made a left turn and suddenly opened out into a room that looked like an art gallery. Hans stepped over the threshold in awe. The room was elegant with statuary and with horse paintings illuminated by hidden lighting. It was so beautiful it seemed unreal. Only Colonel Podhashki was real. He was walking around the center table as if he were striding out his thoughts. He seemed taller than Hans remembered, tall and forbidding. In the midst of his pacing, he swiveled on his heels to regard Hans. The blood pounded in Hans's ears. It was so noisy he feared the colonel might hear it. The colonel's face suddenly was friendly. Ah, a boy who has waited a month should have a hearing. Now then, Hans Haupt, state your business. He sat down at the table and waved Hans into the chair opposite. The moment the colonel spoke, there was a strange thumping sound in the room. Hans glanced in the direction it came, and there, stretched out on a golden sofa, lay a dachshund, her tail wagging like a metronome. A dachshund is a wiener dog. Hans took courage. If a dog and a horse liked the man, a boy had nothing to worry about. He stood up in respect. Your Highness, he said, I wish to be a riding master. I can start at once. A twitching at the corner of the colonel's lips was the only answer. After an eternity, he asked, And what experience have you had? I drive a bakery wagon for my Hans winced. That is, I did. The colonel's eyes sharpened. He had heard reports of the bakery horse, and the one day he had watched Rosie with amusement. Is it a blue wagon? He asked. Yes, sir. And the mare quite aged? Yes, sir, but she's lively as ever. How old are you? 14 and a half? With a kindly smile, the colonel stood up. He put a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder. You come back in a year, eh? But, sir, Hans cried, I'll do anything. I'll rake the sawdust in the riding hall. I'll sweep the floors, polish the brass. I'll musk out the saws. Oh, sir, it would be a privilege to clean Barina's stall. Why only Barina's? Oh, I would do the others, too. Only Barina already likes me. Driving a cart horse, Hans, is quite different from working with Le Pensionnaires. I myself am still learning. Yes, sir. Even Rosie is still teaching me. But, sir, I know a lot about Le Pensionnaires. The clear gray eyes challenged the stern brown ones. Ask me, sir. Ask me anything. The colonel mused. Yes, it would be a good way to end the interview. He fired his questions like a BB shot. Why are they called Le Pensionnaires? The reply was instantaneous. Because they were bred at Lipizza. Who was the first to teach the art of haute éclat? Why, that was the Greek general, Xenophon. What does arbe über der Erde mean? Work above the ground, like flying and leaping. You understand it takes time to teach these unnatural tricks? Hans laughed weakly. He was sure of himself now. The colonel was trying to trip him. The little colts at Piber do these same movements naturally, he said. The colonel did not change expression. The rain of questions went on. How early do you begin training a Le Pensionnaire? At 3.5 years. Why so late? Because Le Pensionnaires grow up slower and live longer than other horses. The bombardment was suddenly over. The silence in the room grew heavy. Hans cast about wildly for something to say. They even teeth later, he added in desperation. The colonel made a steeple of his fingers and studied them thoughtfully. At last he said, I am impressed with your knowledge, Hans. You have knocked upon my Austrian heart. However, I cannot make an exception. Come back in a year, but even then I can make no promises. Herr Hofrat, excuse me, please. It was the secretary's voice. The Herr Director from the opera is here to see you. It is most urgent, he says. Hans made his legs walk out of the room. He heard the colonel's voice saying, Make a note of the boy's name. Something about him. Hans did not stop to listen. He stumbled past a portly gentleman on his way in, past the girls in the office, and out into the cool afternoon shadows. He suddenly felt gutted and empty, like a building that had been bombed. The words would not leave his ears. Come back in a year, but even then. He was wrenched by his own failure. There was nothing left in life. He could not bear to go home. Slowly his feet took him to the library, but not to his usual place. He wanted to hide. No one would think to look for him in the magazine room. In deep misery, he sat down among the old men dozing over their newspapers. He sat there for a long time, just staring. After a while, an old man nudged him with the pole on which his newspaper was clamped. Want to read this one? Hans shook his head. He could not see for tears. Ja, son. I, too, come here for comfort. The world is a wheel, and it will come round right. You'll see. Did I show y'all a picture of the little dachshund on the couch? And here's the colonel looking at his steepled hands. I don't think that's very... There it is. All right.